Hey, Kara Oosterhuis here with RealAgriculture.com. We are here at Farm Tech 2020, and I have here with me Marla Riekman, who is a soil research specialist.
No, soil management
specialist.
Oh my God.
Well, if you wouldn't change your title every day,
exactly.
it wouldn't be a problem. And you are with the Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development.
Yes, that is our new department title. Yeah.
So you are here to talk about spring 2020 and how farmers can deal with that.
Yeah, so generally at Farm Tech, I've been talking a bit more on compaction, which also comes into the whole discussion. But one of the things that we really need to start, we've been thinking about it since harvest has been going on, and it still is continuing in some areas, is how the heck are we going to be able to deal with spring 2020? So quite often I get frustrated when people think, the crop is in the bin, that means like harvest is over. But for a lot of our areas where we rely on doing either fall fertilizing, fall tillage operations, prepping seed bed for 2020, that does not happen when you're trying to take off a crop in the middle of snow, right? So we've got a big challenge ahead of us for 2020. Everybody is very aware of the challenge that's there, and a lot of producers and agronomists are struggling with right now with how are we going to actually be able to get through this scenario.
So what's your number one take-home message with that?
Oh Lord, there's so many different potential take-home messages. I think that right now the key thing is trying to figure out how we're going to get fertilizer down, because if you're set up for spring operations already for fertilizer, so you might be looking at you're okay, right? You've got single pass seeding with fertilizer. You might think you're okay. In that case, maybe you still have ruts that you need to clean up or deal with. You might look at doing some light, shallow tillage on an angle, usually across those ruts, to try to fill those spaces in. We recognize that sometimes they're not going to, even in those rutted areas, once we've kind of flattened the soil out and smoothed it out a bit, they're still not going to yield as well, just because there might be some other structural issues going on in those areas. But that maybe is not going to be too bad a scenario to get through. It's the guys who don't have ability to put down all of their fertilizer with their spring seeding operation that rely heavily on either fall fertilizing passes or doing that extra pass, trying to figure out how they're going to get through that scenario. So if you can get out and you have to fill in some ruts, maybe you're going to be broadcasting some nitrogen at that time, maybe using a protected product. If you're not going to get some rainfall or something to kind of move some of that nitrogen in, you talk to your agronomist about what kind of options you've got for enhanced efficiency fertilizers for that scenario. And then if you are lucky enough to not have maybe ruts to try to deal with, although I'm surprised if you don't at this point, maybe we're looking at top dressing, and do you have the capability to try to put fertilizer down after the fact? There can be a lot of benefits to top dressing, especially, so you might get a little bit of your fertilizer down to get that crop started, maybe half of your nitrogen, something like that. But there can be benefits to looking at a top dressing scenario, because maybe, and here's hoping that 2020 actually brings some good growing season scenario. But what if you got an opportunity to assess your crop, assess what things look like, assess the year in itself, and then make a decision on what's my achievable yield? Do we actually have an opportunity to get to full yield? Maybe we're not going to yield very good. You actually have some flexibility in not over fertilizing, putting everything down right at the beginning. Maybe see how things go, and then make a decision on how much fertilizer you want to continue to invest in that crop.
So if we end up dealing with a wet spring on top of all this, because there will be some spring harvesting going on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
On the compaction side, what do you recommend?
Well, so compaction, when it's really wet, like when we cause all those ruts in the field, we're not really causing a huge amount of compaction deep down necessarily, because the water that's actually in all of the pores in the soil kind of keeping the soil from being compacted on itself. It's protecting the soil. That being said, the ruts are a nightmare of a soil structural problem, because the soil is kind of sliming around and causing all sorts of structural issues, but it's not a true compaction issue. So if we can smooth out those ruts to actually prep a seed bed, then that's kind of the problem. If you are in a kind of moist situation when our soils are near field capacity, so you're not actually causing a lot more ruts, having to spend another pass across a field to till things up, it's potentially a compaction problem. Every time we travel over a field, unless the field is quite dry, it's a compaction problem potentially, right? So we want to limit the traffic, but the reality is we don't have an opportunity to limit the traffic in a year like this. There are just things that have to get done, and we have to do as little damage as we can, I would say, knowing that we're going to create damage. So run your tires at your rated pressure. Don't overload your equipment. Like, make sure your tractors are ballasted properly. If you are going out in the spring and you're still harvesting, trying to take off crop, getting ready for next year, if you're using a grain cart, maybe don't use it if it's a big kind of bushel capacity grain cart and it doesn't have dual axles or multiple axles to kind of spread the load out a little bit. Maybe look at running it half full and trying not to have quite as much of that compression of the soil happening deeper in the ground, because it's the weight of the equipment that actually drives the compaction deep down, and when you drive it deep down, it's harder to get rid of.
So this obviously has been kind of a tough conversation and a tough year. But I recently learned you are making jewelry out of soil. Yeah. Tell me about that.
There was no segue or anything for that one. No, you just jumped right into it.
I just jumped right into it.
So I'm a complete nerd when it comes to soil, and I didn't start this whole thing. I have to credit Kim Brown Livingston, who in Manitoba started this whole thing. So I don't know if you knew, but Manitoba has a provincial soil. It's the Newdale clay loam. It is a lovely soil, and it's all through that kind of Brandon and North area we find the Newdale. And as a part of our promotion of the Newdale clay loam, we actually encase the soil itself in resin. So we've got kind of like metal findings or whatever that hold it, and then you put in the A, B, and C horizons. We actually create horizons. If there's little stones in there, that looks pretty good considering it's a glacial till soil, so there's a lot of stones in that soil to begin with. And then we fill it with resin, and it's a part of the Manitoba Soil Science Society. We do it as a bit of a fundraiser. So for $20, I can outfit you in like a necklace or a keychain or whatever it is that you're looking for. I'm your girl. If you want to wear soil, if you're passionate about soil and you want to wear it on your person, I can help you out with it.
Well, there you go. Farm Tech 2021, we will be wearing the soil. Okay, thanks again, Marla. It was great to have you.
Yeah, thanks.